Hey, you guys, welcome back to Burgundy Blue Commentary. And today is our third part of the four-part series of Black August that Gardis Watts was so amazing to bring to us and give us this knowledge. So I'm going to give it back to Gardis Watts. And thank you so much for all your emails and concerns. They were like, do Gardis have a YouTube page? Gardis, everybody's asking, do you have a YouTube page?
I don't. I have a YouTube profile, but I don't have a YouTube page. Even though I don't know. So, as you know, I am part of my organization is the Chicago Black Catholics Alliance. We actually have a YouTube page, but I do like a commentary every month with my ministry partner Tina Carter. So, I mean, that's the closest I would have to a YouTube page. But
It's called the Chicago Black Christian or Content.
Catholics. But the Chicago Black Catholics Alliance. That's what it's called. So yeah. So that's the closest to YouTube, but that's not my own YouTube page. So
no, but people love to hear the knowledge that you have to bring because you're non-biased. Like you just talk about it from a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's so appreciated. So what does this week of Black August bring us?
All right. So I know we're running a little late, and I think I made a mistake in our last video. I think I said the third F.L.E.A day was the 14th. It was actually the 13th. Yeah, it's actually the 13th. But because of scheduling conflicts, we couldn't get the 13th nor yesterday down. But we're here, so we were able to kind of go through F.L.E.A day number 3 of Black August. Now, this one is interesting because the third F.L.E.A day of Black August, which is commemorated on the 13th, commemorates W.L. Nolan. W.L. Nolan, as I said in the beginning, was one of the 3 founders of the Black resistance prison movement, or the Black liberation movement in the prison system. Nolan, on January 13th, 1970, was assassinated in Soledad prison along with his inmate comrades, Cleveland Edwards and Alvin Miller, by a prison guard who shot all 3 of them. Opie Miller, one of the guards at Soledad, who was one of the watchtower guards. But we will get into that in 1 minute. And so, because it happened in January 13th, they just basically commemorated on August 13th, because obviously you couldn't leave Nolan out of this because he's kind of like the purveyor of the Black August movement. So they just generally commemorated on August 13th, even though the incident happened on January 13th. Now, we got to ask the question, so who is W.L. Nolan? Well, there's not a lot of printed information on W.L. Nolan. There's very few aspects of Nolan actually on the internet. Most of what is known about Nolan is through the Black August scholars who created this, commemoration. And these were the people who were probably closer to that time than anything. So you take, for instance, inmates that was people who knew like Qatari Gordon and George Jackson. Some people who were in the incarceration in the California prison systems during that time, like Ruchell McGee and several other people who were incarcerated. Did I lose the share? No. Okay. All right. Everything okay, Bird?
Yeah, I was trying to make you bigger so they could see you and the script. Forgive me, guys. Forgive me. Yes, we got W.L. Nolan. Stand put. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So he was one of the founders of the Black liberation movements within the incarceration system. But what we know about Nolan is he was born and raised in Oakland, California, and he was basically kind of like an activist during that time. Now, as many people know, Oakland, California was the home of the Black Panthers, where they were actually founded at in 1969. But Nolan actually was convicted of armed robbery in 1963, where he was incarcerated in San Quentin prison, where he actually met George Jackson. Now, Nolan actually was the one that politically radicalized George Jackson as a 19-year-old during that time, because Nolan actually introduced George Jackson to various literatures of radical Black scholars. One being Frantz Fanon. Now, Frantz Fanon was a Black intellectual from the island of Martinique, and he was instrumental to so Frantz Fanon was an educated psychologist. He was a trained psychologist for one. But Fanon would often write about colonization, especially through the eyes of the French. Now, as we know in history, Europeans colonized many parts of Africa, Asia, and South America. And he specifically wrote about a lot of European colonization in Africa, in particular Algeria, which was colonized by the French for years. Well, according to the history, there was a civil war that broke out in the 60s between the native Algerians and the colonized French people who were in Algeria. So for those who don't know, Europeans came to Africa, decided they can claim this land no matter who the indigenous people are, build cities, build businesses without the permission of the natives of that land. Well, the Algerian natives basically decided that they were tired of the French, and it broke out into a civil war. Frantz Fanon basically supported the natives of Algeria, and eventually in 1962, with the Evian Accords, Algeria became an independent state, and they broke free from French colonization. But the thing about it is that Frantz Fanon talked about the colonizers, in particularly Africans and people, non-white people who were colonized by white people. And he talked about the effects of racist violence against colonized people. Two important books that Frantz Fanon wrote was where is it? So, two important books that Frantz Fanon wrote: Black Skin, White Mass, which basically kind of talks about Black folks in a white world and how identity has become something of a weapon against Black people, because as we kind of maneuver in this world that is run by white people, we try to assimilate, or sometimes we subject ourselves to white culture. Many people argue about Black culture in this country, and a lot of it is borrowed through white experience, through racist white experience. So many people question, do we even have a Black culture? Because it's basically through racism. And so Fanon back then talked about the experience of Black natives in Africa and the effects of white colonization and how most of them have to assimilate. Now, he talks about the educated Black folks who try to assimilate into white culture, but yet they're still considered, Negroid or niggers, and they're still subjugated to a lower class status, despite the education level that, they have, which, unfortunately, it's happening today. But then he also talks about those who are colonized, or the native Africans, who don't try to assimilate into the white culture status, and they are they are basically accused of being the kind of like the wretched, and I'm going to show you why he says that in a minute. They're the wretched of society. They're the people who are the outcasts because they don't assimilate into those type of aspects of society.
Oh gosh.
So he wrote this other book called The Wretched of the Earth. Now, basically, in this book, one of the chapters in this book is the longest chapter. It's called On Violence. And what it is that he talks about how violence, in a sense, he talks about revolutionary violence, because he feels like the only way the colonized could free themselves from the colonizers is through revolutionary violence, because the colonization process, or racism itself, is a violent system, and it has impacted us violently, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be spiritual. And he talks about violence overall as being the response to the racist colonized system. Now, going back to George Jackson and W.L. Nolan, these books were very influential on revolution to them. And Nolan was one of the first readers in that particular prison system who introduced, like I said, introduced George Jackson to it, and he was able to kind of like give a political analysis of what real revolution looks like. And also, too, some of the sacrifices people have to make to start revolution. Because Malcolm X, has said it before, revolutions are not bloodless. Revolutions can be bloody. And sometimes blood has to be shed. But Nolan, like I said, he politicized George Jackson, and later on, Qatari Gardin, who we talked about in our first Black August session earlier this month. So Nolan also founded the Black Guerrilla family in 1966. Now, when we think about the Black Guerrilla family now, we think about, a gang-led organization within the prison system that deals drugs and kills folks and do all kind of things. It's something that the media has and mainstream movies have portrayed the Black Guerrilla family as. Well, when Nolan created the Black Guerrilla family, he saw the treatment of Black prisoners and how they were being racially treated by the guards and by other prisoners, because, as you know, there are, even though the Black population in the prison system is very large, there are still other ethnic prisoners and prisoners of other races in the prison system, in particularly the Aryan Nation, which is one of the strongest white prison gangs in the prison system, and they've been there for a long time. Nolan had the need to organize the Black prisoners in the prison system, and he founded the Black Guerrilla family, which originally was a protection unit for Black people in the prison system. Now, obviously, Nolan and George Jackson, who is the co-founder of the Black Guerrilla family, began to teach them politics and teach them Black radicalization. However, the issue is, when Nolan, Jackson, and also Qatari Gardin had been assassinated, they kind of lost their way in what that group was supposed to do. And it's kind of like the same thing what I've read about with the Gangster Disciples, the Black Peace Stone Nations. These were generally organizations that were created to protect Black folks from white racial violence.
Yeah.
And from go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I put my headphones on. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Sharon.
Yeah. And also too, the Bloods and the Crips were kind of like formed in the same way, because when you think about stuff in the 1960s and how Black families who were moving into these northern cities, their houses were being bombed. And this is violence that has gone on for decades, which the police would not resolve. So Black folks had to take matters into their own hands. So as the Black guerrilla family began to grow within San Quentin, Nolan and Jackson in 1969 was transferred to Soledad Prison. And what was interesting is when Nolan went to Soledad Prison, he circulated a petition and filed a lawsuit against the California prison system, articulating the oh, sorry. Why does my phone like to listen to me? But he articulated the inhumane and racist conditions of Black prisoners within the prison system, and he filed this lawsuit, a federal lawsuit against the California prison system, where he names Cletus Fitzharris, who was the superintendent of Soledad Prison. Now, what's interesting is, I think if you do a Google search, you'll find several lawsuits in the 60s and 70s pertaining to Cletus Fitzharris, and a lot of inhumane treatment that was going on in Soledad Prison. But one of the things that he said in his lawsuit, and I'm gonna read a short snippet of it: prison guards are complicit in fomenting racial strife by aiding white inmate Confederates in ways not actionable in court, i.e., leaving cell doors open to endanger the lives of new Africans, placing fecal matter or broken glass in food served to new Africans, etc., as these material factors will be difficult to prove. So he was, articulating these small things that were happening. Well, not the small things, but some of the few things that he expressed that was happening to Black prisoners in the prison system. So the Aryan Nation, or he calls them the Confederates, and the white prison guards were basically working together to eliminate a lot of Black prisoners in the prison system. Well, a couple of months after he filed this lawsuit, on January 13th, 1970, W.L. Nolan, Cleveland Edwards, who was 21, and Alvin Miller, who was 23, these were his comrades with the Black guerrilla family, were shot dead in the on the prison yard by what do they call it, the tower guard, whose name was Opie Miller. Yes, his name is Opie. Opie G. Miller. Apparently, a fight broke out in the prison yard with the Aryan Nation. It was the Black guerrilla family, and it was the Aryan Nation. Now, just a little quick history. Edwards has been in prison since 1967, and he got incarcerated for assaulting a police officer. And then Alvin Miller was arrested in, I think, 68 for he was convicted of armed robbery. But apparently a fight broke out, and according to an administrative assistant in the prison yard, the fight begun during a scheduled exercise period for 15 inmates from the maximum security wing of the prison. Now, apparently, during the conflict, 2 white inmates among the group were beaten to the ground, and the prison, the tower guard Miller reportedly said that they were fearful that Miller, Nolan, and Edwards might severely kill or hurt some of the white Aryan brotherhoods that were actually attacking the Black Guerrilla family. And later on, many witnesses during that time had summarized that, the fight was actually racial in nature. I mean, it was kind of like not hard to miss.
Yeah.
So Officer Miller, who apparently is an expert marksman, he basically shouted, blew a whistle, but he gave no warning shot before firing on Nolan, Edwards, and Miller. Now, according to prison policy, the tower guards are supposed to fire a warning shot, but he did not do that. So this marksman basically killed the 3 black men. Now, there was one injured white inmate. His name was Billy Harris, who was serving time for assault and perjury, was injured, but he didn't die. I guess apparently they say he lost a testicle too. I don't know. But according to statements made by inmates, there had been an intentional mixing of white prisoners who were known Aryans and black prisoners in the yard, and that some manner of fight was going to be anticipated. The congregation of the 15 men in the prison yard had the first integrated exercise period in several months. It was because of the death of a black inmate named Clarence Causey, who had been stabbed to death in 1968, and had left, racial tensions running high during that time, and it was several months prior to January 13th, because before the inmates were kind of segregated, but this was like the first time they had integrated, and I think some people were actually anticipating this fight so they could assassinate somebody like Nolan, who Nolan had actually reported on record before he was killed that there were several Soledad guards who were trying to pay inmates to kill Nolan because they wanted him dead. Yes, they wanted him dead because Nolan was very outspoken. He filed that lawsuit. That was a huge thing. So inmates claimed that the guards had after that whole shootout, they said that some of the inmates who saw some of their comrades on the ground, saying that the guards had intentionally barred them from taking the wounded prisoners to the infirmary. And basically allowed Nolan, Miller, and Edwards to just basically kind of bleed to death for 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, they were finally, they finally received aid. But one of the witnesses, Thomas Merriweather, who was a black inmate present at the shooting, had reportedly attempted to carry Alvin Miller inside. And he, in his statement, said that I started to walk towards the door through which we had entered the yard, but the tower guard pointed the gun at me and shook his head. Then I started forward with tears in my eyes, expecting to be shot every minute. But the tower guard told me that's far enough, end quote. So the next day, 13 black inmates housed in the prison began a hunger strike, demanding a federal investigation of Officer Opie Miller's action, in addition to requesting resegregation of the facilities and psychiatric examination by a black psychiatrist of all of the gun tower guards. On January 16th, Officer Opie Miller was exonerated of the deaths of the prisoner by an all-white Monterey County grand jury. None of the black inmates present for the shooting were asked to testify.
Of course not.
So this basically kind of sparked the movement of the Soledad brothers, because after Nolan's murder, his mentee George Jackson spoke out against the murder. Now, right after Officer Miller was exonerated of the crime of murder, a riot broke out on January 16th, and apparently there was a guard that was killed in the riots, and his name was John Mills. And the people who were charged with the murders was George Jackson, F.L.E.A Drumgo, and John Clochette. They are affectionately called the Soledad brothers, because they were put on trial for murder of that particular guard with no substantial evidence, by the way. And this is what birthed the Soledad brothers. Now, we talked about the Soledad brothers in the second F.L.E.A day with Jonathan Jackson and his declaration to free the Soledad brothers. And this is where the birth of the Soledad brothers comes from, after the death of W.L. Nolan. And this is what propels George Jackson into the spotlight of the Black liberation movement through the prison system. Now, also with Black August, with just the when we talked about the resistance movements that happened, we also talk about the birthdays of the revolutionaries. Now, there was only one revolutionary whose birthday is between the 13th and the 21st, but he's probably one of the more significant revolutionaries in August when you talk about his birthday, and that is Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who is known as affectionately the father of Pan-Africanism. He didn't invent Pan-Africanism, but he elevated it to a level that probably hasn't been seen in a while, or probably has never been seen before. So Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Bay in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. Now, Garvey basically did start his activism in Jamaica. However, during that time, Jamaica was colonized by the British, and most of his comrades in Jamaica didn't want to hear that black stuff.
What?
They did.
Whoa.
They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear that black stuff.
I was just like, what? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they didn't want to hear that black stuff. So from some people, he actually ran out of Jamaica because of that. So he goes to Harlem, and in 1914, he founds the Universal Negro Improvement Association, also known as the UNIA. Mm-hmm. Now, in Harlem, he's very well received. And matter of fact, he's there during the first Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance basically is kind of like a revolutionary cultural movement with a lot of famous icons like Langston Hughes and several other writers that I can go on and on about, poets of this particular nature. But Garvey basically kind of made his home in Harlem, which is what many people considered in the early 20th century the Black Mecca, because that's where a lot of Black thought had came from when you're talking about Blacks in the North. Well, Garvey actually was actually good friends with W.E.B. Du Bois, who was founders of the NAACP. But they got into a little spat because Garvey started to realize when he started working with the NAACP and the Urban League.
Oh yeah,
There were a lot of light-skinned blacks, including W.E.B. Du Bois, and many of them didn't have much or nice things to say about dark-skinned black folks. And as you see in the pictures, Garvey was a very dark-skinned black person. Du Bois and Garvey had a had fundamental issues with each other because during that time, Du Bois was more of what they call an integrationist. He wanted to. He basically fought for the rights of Black people uh, to be a part of this society,
Mm.
uh, to be treated humanely. So, if anything, Du Bois probably was the purveyor of the civil rights movement. Well, Garvey had a different perspective. He wanted Black people to have their own nation. He didn't want white people around. He wanted Black folks to have their own nation and run their own nation. Now, obviously, he didn't want it here. He wanted it in Africa. So he basically started a movement to try to bring as many Black folks who was willing to go to Africa and basically start their own nation.
That's deep. Okay.
And the UNIA basically kind of catered to, the I wouldn't say the lower class Black people, but some of the Black people that the NAACP and the Urban League kind of like forgot about.
Okay. Well,
But
that's smart. Yeah.
yeah, so that was the mission of the UNIA, to kind of like bring people closer to Africa, to give Black people a sense of independence. But most importantly, Garvey wanted Black people to control their own destiny, to
Mm.
control the politics, the economics of their own community, because obviously living under a system of racism, you can't do that. So at the height of the movement, uh, there were roughly 6 million registered members of the UNI.
Oh, I was about to say your okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were basically worldwide. They had offices on all parts of South America, and parts of South America, and I believe Europe, and parts of Asia as well, and Africa. Um, he created the UNIA flag, which is the red, black, and green flag. You kind of see it in the background here, where I kind of like mimic it. But it was a flag created because if you Google this, there's a song in the Library of Congress that was created in the early 20th century called "Every Race Has a Flag But the Coon." That's the title of the song. Every race has a flag but the coon. Garvey and some of his members heard this song and basically said, okay, we'll create a flag. And that's exactly what he did. He created the red, black, and green flag in response to that particular song. So the UNIA was basically it basically kind of blew up in the early 20th century, and particularly the 1920s, when kind of like the first level of the Great Migration started to happen, especially Blacks coming to the north, because they started to come to cities like Harlem and Chicago, and even going out west to Los Angeles. But the UNIA basically sparked some various initiatives within their organization. They founded a printing press. They had a Black newspaper called the Negro World. They developed factories. They also created a thing called the Black Cross Nurses. These were Black nurses who were basically instrumental to the Spanish flu pandemic that happened between 1916 and 1919. For
Mm.
those of you who wanted to look back, it was kind of like the COVID-19 pandemic back in the early 20th century. So they were actually instrumental to helping Black people who caught the Spanish flu during that time.
Whoa.
And then there's also the Black Star Line, which unfortunately Garvey was caught up in mail fraud charges for that and was unfortunately deported out of the country in 1927. Now, what's interesting is
1927. Wait a minute.
what?
1927.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay,
No,
so
no, that's my grandfather. My sister is in here. It's a grandfather birthday. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay, so what's interesting is Garvey was charged through the work of an undercover FBI agent who was actually um, the first FBI, the first black FBI agent in the agency. But apparently, J. Edgar Hoover recruited him to take down Garvey's organization, and he's the first black FBI agent. I think his name is James Worley, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so he took down Garvey's organization, and they were able to charge him with mail fraud. Much of it was basically, like I said, no chain of evidence for mail fraud, and I think it was basically something like 27 cents or something like that he was charged for mail fraud for. But yeah, he was basically railroaded. But even though Garvey was deported, and then later on he he was exiled into London, and unfortunately died from poor health in 1940. Garvey influenced a lot of people who sparked kind of like off branch movements from what he accomplished in the early 20th century. One naming Elijah Muhammad was a follower of Garvey during that time. Now, he wasn't technically a Garveyite or a member of the UNIA, but from my understanding, he did work with them. He was a sympathizer, and you see a lot of what the Nation of Islam is doing is what the UNIA, attempted and in some respects successfully has done in regards to controlling, your economics, your politics, all of that stuff. Except they wanted, the only difference is the Nation of Islam want to do it here, and compared to like just going to Africa. But the nation's philosophies does mirror a lot of what the UNIA had did before their founding. So that was one thing. Another influence was Malcolm X, because Malcolm X's father was a registered member of the UNIA, and he used to preach at churches that had UNIA chapters in it. So Malcolm X, who was influenced by it, and another person who was influenced, and it's interesting because not much is talked about it, is Ho Chi Minh. Now, who is Ho Chi Minh? Ho Chi Minh is the guy who was the North Vietnamese president during the Vietnam War. So if you guys remember, Vietnam was occupied by the French after World War II, and then the United States. Well, apparently Ho Chi Minh, just like I was talking about in Algeria, decided to go to war against the colonizers of France and the United States, because just like all colonizers, they subjugate, abuse, and basically take the resources of the natives of that particular land. So a conflict started between the northern part of Vietnam, because they were assisted by the Soviet Union, and they were armed by the Soviet Union. They fought against the southern Vietnamese, who were supported by the Western powers in the United States. Ho Chi Minh was the leader of the North Vietnamese armies. The thing was that Ho Chi Minh before he went back to Vietnam was in Harlem in the early 1920s. And from what Marcus Garvey's son, Marcus Garvey Jr. had stated in an interview that I saw a couple of years ago, was that Ho Chi Minh used to sit in the back of UNIA meetings and listen to Garvey and take notes. And he took a lot of notes on how to spark revolutions and start revolutions. So he went back to Vietnam and basically led the North Vietnamese communists against the Southern Vietnamese. And as we all know, the United States got their ass kicked during that time. One of the few wars the United States lost. So yeah, Ho Chi Minh was one of the people who were influenced by the Garvey movement. But, you know, the most important aspect of this particular thing in Black August, when you're talking about the connection between W.L. Nolan and Marcus Garvey, because Nolan was one of the first to stand out against the greater incarcerations of Black folks and their and examining or reflecting or analyzing their treatment of how they were in the prison systems. Because while you are still in prison, you still have rights. And possibly because when you're talking about the level of prison in society, nobody thinks about prisoners because, you know, obviously you committed a crime, you need to do the time, and whatever happens in the prison system, you know, it happens. And many people believe that, you know, you deserve to die if you die in the prison system. But in a sense, prisoners still have rights and they still have humane rights. And some of the prisoners could be unjustifiably be in those prison systems longer than they should be. I think I remember when I said George Jackson was incarcerated and sent to prison over $70. And what was his sentence? He got a sentence of 1 year to life.
That's crazy.
Which is absolutely nuts. Because prison, even though they advertise it as a reform system, it doesn't reform anybody. Matter of fact, it abuses more than it reforms.
Wow. Okay.
So Nolan basically kind of noticed this and was like, hey, and in particular, the Black folks that were in the prison system. Garvey, on the other hand, noticed how Black folks were being treated here and also in his homeland in Jamaica under the system of racism. They were economically deprived. They were socially separated. They weren't given the resources that they should be. And the land that they were on, which was stolen, they were not given their 40 acres and the mule. So what did Garvey do? He started to form his own organization where he would try to fix a lot of the ills that Black folks were having under the system of racism.
I get it.
And this book right here, the Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, is another one. These are basically Garvey's own writings and speeches. So you can actually get exactly from the man what he thought about and what he said. So it's not a secondhand type of information. This is all of Garvey's, like I said, all of Garvey's opinions and his writings. And one of the more famous Garvey lines that I love is that he says this, and I think I'll pull it up in 1 second here. But he talks about the Ku Klux Klan, and I'll show you in 1 second.
Okay, we're waiting on you. I'll pull it up when you're ready. It looks like some stars from what I'm seeing, like an astronomical star thing.
He says something to this effect, and I will just pull it up in 1 second because
Check your time.
it's one of the more interesting things that Garvey has said, and I think it often resonates even today. And okay, well, I'll find it. But other than that, Garvey was very influential in kind of waking up the minds of Black people that they're not inferior. They're not they're not these destitute people. Garvey was one of the first who actually lionized Africa. Like, the
Yeah.
media would always talk about how Africa is this dark continent and all it is cannibals, and they never had a civilization, and they just eat each other and boil each other.
My
And
favorite one was the fly on the face.
yeah, that's the modern. Yeah, that's the modern Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Africans, flies on the face, they starving, and not not putting any context towards why they're starving. But Garvey was one of the first people to educate Black folks on Africa. When you're talking about civilization, the purveyors of civilization were from Africa. When you're talking about ancient Nubia and ancient Egypt and several other civilizations in Africa that that were long before Europeans built Europe, because during the times of like, say, ancient Egyptian and even ancient Nubia, white people were in caves suffering and dying in cold Europe.
Yeah.
So these things Garvey basically kind of put in the minds of Africans and told, basically kind of like presented to Black folks that, you don't have, you are not inferior. And he was one of the first people to tell folks, you are not inferior. You are a race of people proclaimed by God to pick up what you left off in creating civilization. So this is Black August, and this is the resistance that we have to have. Am I still there?
I'm sorry, I'm muted. I'm sorry. I'm just talking my whole life away. I am so sorry. I hate when I try to mute so I'm not, loud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going back to Garvey, I know you were looking for that book.
No, the quote.
The quote. Okay.
Oh, I got it. So Garvey said, and this was very prevalent for January 6th, because I think I created a what did they call it? It was a meme that I created, and I'll put it on the screen. Am I still sharing?
Yeah, you can. I just didn't see anything.
No, I'm not sharing. Sharing. But it was something that I had posted after the January 6th. But Garvey said, the Ku Klux Klan is not an ordinary social club organized around the corner. The Ku Klux Klan is the invisible government of the United States of America. The Ku Klux Klan expresses to a great extent the feeling of every real white American.
What?
The attitude of the Ku Klux Klan is that America shall be a white man's country at all hazards, at all costs. End quote.
Wow. How do you feel that picks in today? If you don't mind asking, me asking that. And I guess you probably have to pinpoint an area, but
oh yeah, well, like and let me share my screen again, because
okay.
like I said, this was what I was this is what I was talking about. So this is the meme that I created after January 6th. So I mean, white folks wanted their country back, and they will violently take it over any way they can. And you notice, like, not everybody, even though some of them had to go to jail, not all of them went to jail. And the ones who did go to jail, what did our president do? He released them.
Really? So what was the outcome, the positive information, anything from January 6th we could have kept from that?
Well, the one of the positive things of January 6th, in a twisted perspective, is America's still a white man's country.
Mm. I
I
gotta
mean, that's the realization. That's the realization that I got from January 6th. It's like nothing's really changed. Like, obviously, and we all say this because it means it means something. If that was a whole bunch of black folks, 3,000 black folks would be dead right now.
We were talking about that party today on the West Side, and I think Scott made a good point. Like, it could, if it would have not been on the news if it was this situation, another race. When we get down to, okay, January 6th meant nothing. How do you feel Black August is going over for us right now?
Well, the thing is, I think there's still a lot of reaching out to do, a lot of political education to do in regards to Black August. I think because of the fact that, I keep reiterating this, because Black August is not a celebration. It's not a reason to have a cookout.
Okay.
Because the thing about Black August, it's political education and it's work. It's work because of the fact that it makes us realize how much work we have to do as people who look to liberate ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be, we got to pick up a gun and go out and kill the first white people that we see. I mean, I'm not advocating that at all. But what I am saying is, the first start of revolution is always from the heart and the mind, because colonization and racist, the effects of racism, this just doesn't affect our social conditions. It also affects our mindset. It affects our spirits.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking about this book, Black Skin and White Mass. One of the problems that we have as Black people, even today, is identity. Identity is one of the biggest issues that we have. And I'm not talking about what we declare. I'm talking about what we stand for.
Yes.
Because many people, I mean, we all can claim we're Black. Everybody can claim. You, me, everybody in this chat, we all claim that we're Black. But when it comes down to actually being Black, when we're talking about, defending Black folks, loving Black folks, we have a hard time with that.
Oh yeah, we do. We have a hard time supporting each other, being there for one another without pocket watching, all that crazy stuff.
Yeah, and it's always, and we always have this thing. Well, Black businesses, they do this, they do that. I'll never go to a Black business again because they treated you bad. And don't look. All businesses do that, but I don't see people talking about, well, I ain't going to Walmart again because they ain't
going to McDonald's again, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, we always are always hard on ourselves, because in the system, we are taught to hate ourselves. We are taught to hate our Black skin because, as Frantz Fanon said in his book, one of the more important aspects of this racial social structure is the use of language to demonize the word Black. To demonize that anything that is dark is bad. And anything that is not close to white is not something to be trusted. So our language has been turned against us.
I agree. You got a great question up here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Black August block party in Oakland, um, August 30th near Oakland City Hall. Is there a similar event in this Chicago area? And I think that you get caught up in this question because I read it and I don't know what I'm talking about, so it's not your fault. But I think that's when it's Oakland the same place because it's a lot of. So Brandon, was it a lot of? It was it a Fred Hampton party?
Oakland is the birthplace of the Black Panther Party.
Okay.
But August 30th, and we'll talk about that in our next Black August thing. Wait a minute, is it August 30th or August 31st? It's 30. Okay, so August 30th is, hold on, let me see. I think it's August 30th. Fred Hampton's birthday is August 30th. And so there is something similar during that time because Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., who was actually on the show a couple of months ago, has a block party during that time, and he has several events, activities, for the people. He speaks. His mom, Jerry Nkura, who also speaks as well. They organize a lot of stuff for this event. So yeah, it's actually a pretty good event. It's on the west side, and it's a pretty event. So I think that's probably equivalent to what happens in Oakland, California on August 30th.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to reach out so I could be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll send you the flyer. I'll send you the flyer when he prints it. He always sends me stuff, so I'll send it to you.
See, it helps to know the plug. Thank you, guys. It was an important question. Let me see. Okay, Scott said, I think a lot of the population that isn't used to being poor will soon learn what it's like as corporations, I guess, continue to embrace AI to eliminate jobs that would displace whites, blacks, and many others. That AI coming through.
Yeah, it is, and it is.
It's
See,
not accurate all the time, but it's just coming through.
oh no, and so here's the thing. Somebody was saying AI. There's a lot of dangers in AI. Matter of fact, I think I read a news story where AI had caused somebody to be severely injured or die because they were suggesting somebody spoken to AI about reducing their salt intake, and I think they had suggested some other salt that the person who had asked about it, I guess they had some sort of reaction to it with their body, and I think they either was severely injured or died. So AI is very, it's very you got to be careful with it. But no, the effects of AI is something that is going to affect the economy in the next, heck, I wouldn't even say 5 years. I would probably say within the next couple of years, if that, because a lot of jobs are being used for AI. But with AI kind of taking over, I think the death of original thought
Mm.
is going to start accumulating, because everybody's going to want to, just let me ask AI what they think.
And all you gotta
And
do is copy and paste. It's so simple.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're in academia, that's a huge problem. And now they have software that can actually track if you like, say for instance, when I wrote papers in theology school, They had software that can track to see if they find something on the internet and it's like 80 to 90%, close to what was replicated in your paper, then they would question it. Oh yeah, so original thought is slowly dying with this, with the overuse of AI.
Yeah, I remember growing up, we had the encyclopedia. You couldn't copy word from word. Then we got to AOL, and then we got to Wikipedia, and now it's AI. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet, no one knows how to cursive anymore. But I get it.
Well, yeah, and that's a huge problem, especially when you're talking about trying to build future historians, because there's some things like with historians you have to read like first source material, and cursive was very popular 30 years ago. So if you can't read cursive, you're basically kind of like illiterate. And I think the thing too is that the historical work is being stunted, because they don't, first of all, they don't want us to know our history. Because when you don't know your history and you can't analyze it or deeply reflect on it, then whatever the power system gives you, you'll just eat it up and like it.
True. So thank you for coming to my goddaughter's. I think that was my goddaughter. But coming together, and we all listen to you all day. We listen to anything you have to say. When we hear Gardis is on someone's live, we jump over there, and she's such a super fan. So now she's getting ready. She wants to go to a college that's faith based,
Mm-hmm.
but she got like C's in the local public college. This is a text that just coming through. What could you suggest? I'm sorry, I had to ask that. She's like, what would Gardis suggest for me to go to the next level with my education? Because they're telling her right now she has to go to a community college first, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe go to a 4-year college if she doesn't get her grades up.
Okay. How old?
She's 17.
Okay. I'm assuming she just graduated from high school.
No, she's in there one more year, and she goes to the high school in the city. It's a CPS school.
Oh, okay. All right. But she wants to go and get a degree in what?
History. She wants to look at mummies and see how all that stuff went down. She wants to work for a museum one day, so she loves history.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, from what you just said, she may want to be an archaeologist, which,
Hmm.
yeah, that's, I mean, that's a historical profession as well, archaeologist. Um, University of Chicago actually has a good archaeology program, but it's University of Chicago, so yeah, obviously you might want to improve your grades, and don't look down on yourself. And I suggest to anybody, don't look down on yourself if you have to go to junior college, because guess what? Junior colleges around here are accredited. You get A's in there. I mean, you could bring your status up as a scholar, because they are accredited and transferable to any, almost any university that you want, and that's probably including the University of Chicago. So yeah, if you need to go to a junior college, go to junior college, and yeah, improve your grades. But yeah, I would say University of Chicago, from what I know around here, has a good archaeology program.
Thank you so much. She said thank you too. She was like, "Can you please ask this TC?" Okay, it's asked. Okay, archaeology, and I'm like, "Look, go online and spell it." Okay. So now I have another question, and this came from last week. When do we get to the part of the boating Black August situation? Would you include that in this series? Of when the young man was trying to dock and he was telling the people the boat was blocking the way and they tried to jump on this man. And here they come with the folder. Is that part of Black August
Yeah,
historic? Or is
we
it
talked about that in the first episode.
right? But is that included in Black August historically, like with people?
Yeah, I would. I mean, because it's a new incident, because I think that happened like 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, no, like I would include it in my Black August, and I think several other Black August scholars have included that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, because they're gonna start marching in here in a minute, Gardis. That's why I was like, go ahead and get these questions out. They're watching you now. So anything else you have to say about Black August? I appreciate this. I'm so sad that next week will be our last week, but I did get like several emails about the free food program, food and clothes that Fred Hampton, the chairman Fred Hampton did,
Mm-hmm.
and his father, about if the house was still there. We did cover that already. If he is, they asked about Black Messiah, so I won't go into that. Jesus and the Black Messiah. Let me just scroll.
Well,
Someone just asked if we would do history on plantations. They're sick of hearing. I'm sick of hearing about people only picking cotton. It was rice, beans, wheat that slaves went to different areas to pick from.
oh yeah, my great grandfather and my great great grandmother were slaves on a tobacco plantation.
Tobacco. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
tobacco.
I didn't even know about the wheat. I heard about the rice. I think that's like in islands, and then or somewhere rice is like.
Yeah, rice is grown in the Caribbean. It is grown in Arkansas. I think that's the only place in the United States is grown in. But mostly in the Caribbean, like Haiti and Jamaica. Maybe there might be some other places that I'm forgetting, but yeah, mostly in those areas. But yeah, rice I think was only grown in Arkansas, in this country.
Okay. And then Chu said, future episode, any tips for our young melanated children, especially boys in predominantly white schools? Ooh.
Oh, okay. Well, hmm. You know, the thing is that we have to teach our children to maneuver in this world, no matter what school they go to. However, I do suggest, if you do feel like your children are going to be subject to uh, racism, whether it be in the classrooms or by other children, I would probably suggest you not put your children in those schools.
Hmm.
Um,
What would be alternative for you? Homeschooling?
I mean, yeah, but I think a lot of us have full-time jobs and wouldn't be able to, to accomplish that. Now, if we actually truly had a community, we could probably form a homeschool network of, maybe parents who may be retired, or mothers who are married into a family where the husband can provide everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they could basically educate the children in the particular community. That's, like I said, that's if we actually had a community. But a homeschool network would probably work.
Oh, okay.
But education, it's so tricky. Education, especially public education, is so tricky with that. And that's why one of the things that we have to be careful about when we put our children in the education system, whether it be public, whether it be private, whether it be Catholic school, Lutheran school, or whatever, we still have to be the overseers of our children's education, which
Yeah.
means being involved with the children in school, which
Mm.
means understanding what our children are seeing in school, what they're learning in school. I mean, like when our children come home from school, do we ask them, well, what did you learn today? Do we personally know who their children are? Do we personally know who their principals are?
That's
I
why we're
mean,
so exhausted because we don't know. We just got to ask and rely on the kids.
yeah, exactly. And so we have all of these elements of children, and I mean, it's sad to say that when I worked at 148, and sometimes I would have to stay to support the teachers for parent teacher conference, and it was just like sad to see that very few parents came up there for parent teacher conference, because this is the opportunity to see your child's teacher, to ask them questions, what they've been learning, any disciplinary issues that they've been having. They can be presented, to the parents at that time.
You're right.
But it was just sad to see like so few participation in parent teacher conference, because most of the time the halls were empty. There might be a few parents here and there. And then I compare that to what, like the schools that I put my daughter in. And during parent teacher conference, whether it be at 7:00 at night, the schools are full. Like I literally have to wait like 10 to 15 minutes to see one of my child's teachers. So they had to put everything on Zoom. Some of them they had to put on Zoom because it was like, the wait was too long in there. And now they only give you, like at school, they only give you like 5 minutes. 5 minutes, because I got other parents to see. But there's a difference there, The public schools has gotten political, and actually too political when you think about the decisions that are being made by these boards who run these school districts, and how politics has played so much into that. Don't get me started on the 148 issue, because that is a political thing that I can narrate to you in another episode if you're willing to do that.
Sure, I'd love to hear from you for that, for sure. It's the inside scoop, because sometimes I feel like we as parents, we use the school as a daycare, and we think they're supposed to teach all the kids everything while they're there at once. And I had to learn that myself.
But the thing too is that, going back to the school boards, a lot of it, when you look at some of the members on the school board, it's almost like the township. They're just there to kind of either launch their political careers or to just establish themselves somewhere where they can say, well, I got voted here, and I got, I got voting control over, said resources.
Yeah.
And these benefits, and most of it isn't even about educating the children.
I don't feel like, and I hate we gotta get on 148, but just real quick, these are my thoughts, not the thoughts of Gardis. Okay. I feel like they're not even mad he making that money. They just want the seat. I just feel like someone wants that seat where the doctor over there, the superintendent, has 2 seats and two different positions and making this big money. And now I don't know if this is like the township, but wouldn't someone get appointed and then leave out his term with his salary? I don't know if that's in the 148 guidelines, but that could happen. And what is Tiffany?
Well, here's the thing, because like I said, I don't work there anymore, but it's funny that they would get, like he would resign, Dr. Nolte would resign, and they don't have an assistant superintendent nor deputy superintendent.
Because I thought the deputy did it. Okay, I was watching.
Because if you remember last year, the deputy superintendent was fired as well, and she has a lawsuit hanging over 148 right now. So, the question is, 148, their school starts Monday. So who's the superintendent? Who's the superintendent?
Look, okay, you got one more question. Choose compassion, because I ain't got no answer for you guys. That's why I just went and glossed. Who's in charge of the girls? No one knows. So Chu said, thank you. I didn't want to take up more time. We could learn a lot. Oh, you talking to Gardis because you ain't learning nothing from me. Gardis is getting it in. She said board should consist of people who have experience, understanding, and the people being served. I have a problem with that when your kids didn't even go to the district or your kids are not even in the district and now you on the school board for what? You ain't
Yeah,
helped in 1998 when I was in school or 1997.
yeah.
You know,
So generally, the only requirement to be on a school board is no felony convictions. But one of the more important things is that you have to be a resident of the school district. So you have to live within the
you
boundaries
don't
of.
even have to care about the have kids or okay, cool.
So yeah, so if it was up to me and I had control of the ISBE, Illinois School Board of Education, I would add 2 extra requirements to be on the school board. One, you would have to have some sort of experience working within a school district.
Okay.
That would be one qualifier outside of just being a resident. However, if you have not worked in education, my second qualifier would be you would have to have at least one child within the school district.
Or know some or at least a relative that's in the school district. Like it's nothing. Y'all just jumping in there to rubber stamp. But here we are. I'm gonna see if someone gets appointed or if they have to start from scratch. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I still got contacts in it, so I've been waiting for them to respond to me. Like, okay, who's gonna be who's gonna be running 148 school district since Dr. Nolte's gone.
Dr. Noty got up out of there. He was like, okay, look, I don't have time for what y'all did for Tiffany. This is what I'm saying. I feel like Dr. Noty, like, I don't got time for that dragon like you did Tiffany. I got a pincher in the winds. Hasta la vista, baby.
Choose the riverboat incident is considered Black Ops, at least from my perspective.
I think so too. And Choose always brings it up. I think that's
it's what I consider Black August energy.
that was that was just I was like, this is happening.
Yeah, it's considered Black August energy. Because there's just a point where just Black folks are just tired. Like, we tired of this stuff. We tired of looking at it. We tired of seeing it. We tired of praying over it, and we just need some action. And that's what happened. There was an incident back in the 1940s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Houston incident. So, and I might have the years wrong, but I guess apparently there was an all Black regiment that was not too far from the city of Houston, and I think this was like a little bit after World War II or during World War II. But what happened was there was a man who was lynched in the city of Houston, and so the Black troops basically kind of heard about the incident, and so what they did was they went to the armory, got the guns, and went to the town and started shooting. They started shooting folks.
Wow.
But unfortunately, they got arrested, court-martialed, and hung after that. But it was the Black soldiers who was like, when one of their comrades was lynched, they were like, okay, we got guns too. And sure enough, they went into the city and decided, hey, you know what? We about to, man, let me see. Let me see if I could find it. Here it is. Okay. It was called the Houston Riots of 1917. A group of hey, look at this. you always find something about Black August, right? Hold up, let me pull this up.
Thank you.
Let me go back to share screen again. Entire screen. So we always learn something new in Black August, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see my screen? No.
Coming up. Okay.
All right. The Houston riots of 1917, a mutiny of riots by 156 black soldiers and all black 24th, 24th Infantry Regiment of the United States Army took place on August 23rd, 1917. I had no idea. In Houston, Texas. The incident,
Oh wow.
incident occurred within a climate of overt racist hostility from members of an all-white Houston Police Department against black members of a local community and black soldiers stationed at Camp Logan. Following the incident where a police officer arrested and insulted black soldiers, many of their comrades mutinied and marched to Houston, where they opened fire and killed 11 civilians, including the minor Fred E. Winkler and 5 policemen. 5 soldiers were also killed by whites. In accordance with the military law of the time, 118 soldiers were tried in 3 court-martials. This was the largest trial in U.S. history. In total, 10 were convicted, of whom 19 were executed and 63 were sentenced to life imprisonment. Yeah, isn't this something you learn something every day?
And I always go back to how young these men were and how they made an impact, and we can go back and reflect on that because of Gardis Watts as well. This is interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, I knew about the Houston riots, but you know what? I may have known about it, but I forgot it was in August.
You got to add one to your list.
Yes, I need to add this to my list. Yeah, so basically, a bunch of black troops was tired of Houston cops, violating the civil rights of their black soldiers, and they decided to march upon the city and fire upon the cops.
And when we tired, we tired. That's
exactly.
crazy.
When we tired, we tired.
They were done with it. And I after the same that boat incident, I was just like, whoa. And I forgot it was in August. Enough was enough. That's interesting. Thank you so much, Gardis, for sharing this with us. So next week is part 4.
Yep. Should be August 21st. It's the 4th F.L.E.A day, which we got a lot to cover.
And I think that also, like, we can't be mad because you're finding new stuff to uncover. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. I'm like, wow, I forgot it was in August, but yeah.
Black August is something else. So as soon as we find out about chairman event, we'll put it on the page. And then also we'll catch up with everyone that was saying that it's events by them. Send us pictures so we can share them. And okay. I think that'd be great. And I think Shoes had one more question. I think that's it. Oh, yeah, that was the question. Was the riverboat incident considered Black August? I think yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she also said boards should consist of people who have experience, understanding of the people being served. I agree.
Well, yeah, that's why I said it's like either you have experience in the education system or have a child in that particular school district. Because I know there's a board member I know in the Lansing School Board District, and she has 2 children in there. And I noticed her zeal and her seriousness and her dedication to being a board member. Mm-hmm. And she always talks about how, there's board members there who just there, so they can serve some political purpose. No, she's there to, to serve the needs of the children because she has two children there.
Yeah.
So you have a vested interest in your job, whereas at the at 148, I don't think anybody has any children. I think one board member may have a grandchild in the school district, but I think there's also one who has experience working in the school district. Matter of fact, the current president of 148, Dr. Shalonda Randall, actually used to be a principal at one of the schools at 148.
Oh, nice. That's real nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't know where to go. Like if you at home and you can send your kid to Thornridge and then after school they can go to cheer for the Dolton Bears, that should be safe. But it's just the reality of it is not safe, and no one's trying to make it safer. So that
Yeah.
has to be addressed. I think that more people need to go to the library board meetings and the park district board meetings. That's taxpayer dollars too, if they have time. Gardis, I'm sorry because I'll talk to you all day, and my voice is gone. So y'all, excuse me, my voice is gone from yelling on set every day. So I'm sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Oh yeah, and everybody saying thank you, and we'll see you soon, Gardis.
All righty then.
All right, bye. Child, I'm sitting here on the computer trying to get this education for Gardis, and they done walked up in this room like 8 times. I'm like, y'all, it's an hour video. It's an hour video. Do you want to learn about Black August? Come sit right here. Go ahead and make a palette on the floor. Let's get going. So you guys, thank you to Gardis Watts. Sorry, sometimes everybody in my house get a little antsy when I'm not around. I appreciate you guys. Thank you thank you, Gardis, for teaching us this. Thank you for taking a chance on the channel. Choose Scott. I saw Brandon. I might miss some, but Douglas. Thank you so much for being here. I know that it's a little different from our content, but history is so important to me. I love to find the history of things. So next week, if you have any Gardis Watts Black August questions, go ahead and type them up so we can get them to them next week. All right, you guys. I'll see you soon. I'm gonna try to drink some tea and get my voice ready for tomorrow. Take care of yourself and each other. Bye.
Commentary blue, commentary, burgundy, commentary, comment blue, commentary, comment burgundy blue, commentary blue, commentary, burgundy, commentary, commentary.
Hey, Brandon. Sorry, I just saw your question. Brandon Green said there's a Black August block party in Oakland, California on August 30th near Oakland City Hall. Is there a similar event in the Chicago area? I did hear Gardis answer that I think the Black Panthers were founded in Oakland. So I can't tell you whether to go or not. Email me a flyer and then I'll send it over to Gardis. And then, but because it was founded there, I'm sure they have amazing celebrations. And then we have to remember that, I'm so sorry. I did not want to call him. Chairman Fred Hampton was actually from here. He was actually from here, so that's different. He's from here. So we have the Hampton House, which they purchased and made a historical site. How amazing is that? Now I don't know what's happening in Oakland. Maybe Brandon, we could collab and you could tell me what was happening down there, and I could tell you what's happening up here. I would be up for that. And I just appreciate all of y'all for being here. You welcome, Scott. Thank you so much. And then Paul said thank you to Gardis. Thanks for being here, Paul. And you know what? Paul also said, let us know which meetings are important for residents to attend. Sometimes I feel like our attendance makes no difference. You just had a back to school huge giveaway and then a barbecue, and it was all sponsored by the library board. Maybe that should be something that people could ask. And then Chu said, Paul, you make a huge difference. All right, and hug Jennifer, Paul. You guys take care of yourself and each other. Bye-bye. See y'all tomorrow. I'll be around probably tomorrow or Sunday because I want to get some stuff done. And I think we have a board meeting Tuesday at Thornton Township, but I'll be working. But try to get all y'all answers to the, what's it called? Agenda answered that I can. But again, rubber stamp board. Let's see where it goes. Let's just hang in there and see where it goes. Bye, guys.
Commentary blue, commentary, burgundy, commentary, comment blue, commentary, comment burgundy.